So in this video, we'll compare vanilla Factorio with a modded Factorio. And to see the difference, we'll look at what it takes to build an accumulator. So in the game, an accumulator is just a huge array of batteries which can store electricity for your entire factory. And this is important if you're building a solar-only energy source. So of course, solar panels only work in the day, and at night you'll need some batteries to store all that excess energy so that your factory will still work through the night. So an accumulator in vanilla Factorio requires 2 iron plates, 5 batteries. Batteries themselves are just sulfuric acid, just 20 units, and you have your cathode and anode, your iron plate, and copper plate. So how do we create sulfuric acid? Sulfuric acid is just sulfur and water combined with a catalyst. So in real world, that I think is vanadium, and it's not consumed, but here it's consumed, so it's just a gameplay thing. So sulfur and water produces sulfuric acid, and to create sulfur, just like in real life, you're going to need petroleum. So in real life, sulfur is a byproduct of oil refining, but in the game, it's just water and petroleum gas. So petroleum gas, if you scroll down here, is from refining oil. So if you got crude oil, you can refine that through an oil refinery to heavy oil, light oil, and petroleum gas. Petroleum gas can also be created by cracking light oil into the even lighter oil, which is petroleum. And light oil, in turn, can also be cracked from heavy oil. Both cracking requires water to crack them all. So that's crude oil to sulfuric acid. Then the rest of the required materials for the battery and accumulator are just your iron plate and your copper plate. Both can be smelted from mined copper and iron ore. You mine the ores, then you smelt them in a furnace, and you get the plates. Combine them all, you've got an accumulator. Now let's look at how these things work in a mod. Now here we are at the mod Industrial Revolution, and we're going to look at accumulators. In this mod, the accumulator requires a lot more ingredients. So we've got advanced controller, small steel chassis, a junction box, 3 high capacity batteries, and a heavy coil. Now let's start with the advanced controller. What is an advanced controller? Let's follow the belt. So you played Factorio. They are similar to the advanced circuits. It's more of a consolidated advanced circuit. So this is the red circuit. Let's go to our red circuit factory. The advanced circuits are similar to vanilla. It still requires an electronic circuit, which is the green circuits. Also requires a plastic bar, but instead of copper cable, copper wires, it requires gold foil. So green circuit, plastic, and gold foil instead of copper cables. Now the gold foil comes from gold ingots pressed into gold foil, which makes it similar to how you build the green circuits. Then the advanced controllers are just advanced circuits consolidated using gold cable. So you got 8 advanced circuits in an advanced controller. Now let's go and follow the belt to see how the green circuits are created. Also look at the plastic bars before we do that. So the plastic now requires plastic fluid, liquid plastic. So liquid plastic is similar to how you build your plastic in the vanilla Factorio. You still got your petroleum gas, but instead of just petroleum gas and coal, you're going to need carbon. What is carbon? We'll leave that for later. Before that, let's go on to our green circuits, our electronic circuits. Electronic circuits don't require copper cable, they now require copper foil. Copper foil, like gold foil, is copper ingots pressed into copper foil. And instead of iron plates, you're going to need glass sheets. So yeah, instead of copper and iron, you're going to need glass and copper. So what are glass sheets? Glass sheets are built out of glass ingots and tin ingots. So you're going to fire them up and you're going to get glass sheets. How do you get glass ingots? Let's go way back up. See where we build our glass ingots. Now, glass ingots are built out of sand and crushed tin. So you're going to smelt that. You're going to alloy that, and you're going to get our glass ingots, which again, combined with yet more tin, will produce glass sheets. And how do we create sand? Sand is crushed gravel. And what is crushed gravel? What is gravel? Gravel is crushed stone. So you got our electronic crusher, you got our bronze crusher down here, but you can use crushers to crush ore, in this case stone, into gravel. So that's how you build glass. Still need to explain how tin is created. We still got our tin ingots, you got our crushed tin, but as you can see a preview here, it's a bit more advanced than our typical smelting thing. Now, before we move to the smelting, let's just take a quick detour to explain how carbon is created. Carbon combined with petroleum gas produces plastic. So carbon also crushed. It's crushed from crushed coal, and if you crush crushed coal even further, you're going to get carbon, and sometimes you get diamonds. Now, crushed coal is obviously just coal crushed. But again, I think it's worth noting that we use crushed coal more than coal because, well, you can create carbon out of it. And aside from that, as you can see at the bottom of the tooltip, its pollution is 75% of normal. So if you're going to power your pollution belching burners to power your entire factory, it's going to produce a lot less pollution. Anyway, back to the last thing in our advanced controller raw materials. You've got your copper. You got your copper ingots. So instead of just plates, you start off as melting your ore into ingots. Here we're using crushed copper ore. I'll explain the whole crushing thing even further near the end of this video. But yeah, you got your ore, you crush it, and you're going to get some copper ingots. Copper ingots, tin ingots, and you get your glass, copper ingots and your glass sheets. You get your green circuits, and green circuits, combine that with gold ingots, same thing. You can smelt the gold, you're going to get all that. And last thing is the petroleum. How to create petroleum is just the same as vanilla. There are changes in the ratios in the cracking heavy oil and cracking light oil, but at the end of the day, it's just refining crude oil into lighter oils, or its constituent oils, because heavy oil is heavy oil. You don't have asphalt or the like. Anyway, that's just for the advanced controller. Let's proceed to the next, steel chassis. Small steel chassis. I'm going to follow our factory here. Small steel chassis are built out of steel rods and steel rivets. Steel rivets are cut from steel rods, and steel rods are steel ingots drawn out into rods. Now, how do we create steel in Industrial Revolution? We follow the belt here. Here is our belt. Follow up here and up to our steel foundry. Now, steel, as some of you might know your metallurgy or chemistry, it's iron infused with a certain percentage of carbon. So here we've got our crushed coal crushed into carbon and smelted along with iron ingots, and that produces our steel ingots. If you want to create steel plates, we just get our assembler to press them into plates. Now our iron is just our normal iron. It's just iron. So we got our iron smelter here, like our vanilla Factorio. So we've got our iron ore. We also got our tin. Tin is obviously different from iron in this mod. So yeah, that's just our iron. So if we're going to create our steel chassis, we're going to get some steel, then get some rods and rivets, and turn that into our small steel chassis, which we need to create anything with steel. Well, anything complicated with steel. Next up would be another example of what needs small steel chassis. It's our junction box. A junction box requires a small steel chassis, a heavy copper cable, and solder. So we don't just have copper cable like in vanilla Factorio here. We also have heavy copper cable. What are heavy copper cables? Heavy copper cables are copper cables with insulation. So we've got natural rubber instead of plastic. You got insulators for our heavy copper cable. Then how do we create our rubber? We crush rubber wood. What are rubber wood? Well, rubber wood comes from rubber trees. But of course, if you're just playing vanilla Factorio, you don't have any way to manufacture trees. You just have to cut them. In this mod, you have stuff that needs wood, stuff that needs rubber, like this one. So how do we create wood? So if we follow our bus again, follow it way up there to our wood manufacturing. Yeah, it's more wood growing, wood farming thing. Previously it was there, but I've already moved it near our boilers for some reasons. Okay, so we follow that, and we've got our greenhouses, our foresters. So some other mods also have this. They also use wood as a constant resource. So here we have a facility that can turn saplings into wood. Because in this mod, if you harvest trees, there is a slight chance of getting a sapling, as you can see on the right side of the screen. Now with those saplings, you shove it in these greenhouses, and after some time, usually takes 10 minutes, you can now get 40 units of rubber and the chance to get yet another sapling. So this has been running for quite some time, and also it absorbs some pollution. So if you can see, it has a minus 2.5 per minute pollution on the right hand side of the screen. So we got our wood factory there producing wood, and that rubber wood is then crushed into the rubber, and the rubber is used as an insulation to the heavy copper cables. And yeah, the copper cable, as we haven't seen before, we've seen the foil. Copper cable is copper ingots drawn out into rods, and the rods drawn out into cables. So that's that. I'm gonna get some heavy copper cable there. And we now get to solder. Solder is another fun thing about this mod. So normally in vanilla Factorio, our contacts are just simple copper contacts and we magically create circuits out of it. But in this mod, we're going to take it a step further and get some solder. So solder, as we know, used to contain a bit of lead in it. Now with ROHS, we have lead-free solder, but since we don't care about lead-free solders in this world, we're going to go for our 75% tin and 25% lead. How do we create lead? So lead comes from refined lead. And where do we get refined lead? We've got our ore washing plants. So with our crushed raw tin ore, we can wash that and get some refined tin. 20% of the time, we're going to get also refined lead. And 1% of the time, we're going to get sapphire. Similar to how we can sometimes get diamonds in crushed coal. So with that, you've got our lead. I'm going to smelt that into lead ingots. Lead ingots can be combined with tin ingots to create our solder, and lead can be also pressed into lead plates. And now we've explained the whole washing thing, let's just make a quick segue into how Industrial Revolution does smelting. At the start of the game, you can smelt it like normal vanilla Factorio. You just smelt stuff. If you can look at here how that works, get 12 copper ore, smelt that, and you're going to get 12 copper ingots. However, if you crush copper ore first, what you get is, instead of 12 copper ore, you need only 10 crushed copper ore to build ingots. Then you'll just again press them into plates using some of your assemblers. Now, if you take it a step further and go through the tech tree, you will get washing. Washing ore turns them into refined ore. And as we will see here, instead of 10 crushed ore, you just need 8 refined ore. So this mod doesn't have the productivity bonuses of the vanilla game, at least not in the early game. But instead it has this crushing and washing thing going on, and once you wash stuff, you're going to get yet more materials to work with. And then in this case, tin, if you wash tin, you're going to get lead sometimes. And that's the junction box: solder, chassis, and heavy copper cables. Now let's proceed with the final two, the high capacity batteries. High capacity batteries are similar to the batteries in vanilla Factorio, but instead of our cathode and anode being copper plates and iron plates, here we've got our lead plates, which is how stuff works in real sealed lead acid batteries. And instead of just plain old just iron and copper, you need a tube to contain all of that. So tubes, and see how our mini bus here, because steel is quite complicated, we have to create our own bus for steel. Steel is just steel plates drawn out into steel tubes. Then again, steel tubes. Again with sulfuric acid. I think we haven't shown it yet. Sulfuric acid is similar, but instead of requiring a catalyst for the sulfur, drawing out sulfur from petroleum, they removed it because tin or iron isn't really vanadium. And if you're going to go to the catalyst part, that is yet another level in the tech tree. So instead of having a catalyst here to draw out the sulfur, it's just water and petroleum. And similarly, to get sulfuric acid, you just need water and sulfur. Yeah. So no need for any iron catalyst there. So that's the high capacity batteries. We also have our normal batteries here. Instead of iron, it uses tin. Instead of iron and lead, it uses tin. So that is our normal batteries. And that will be what you're going to use for early battery things. So for instance, our construction robot uses batteries. Normal batteries, not high capacity batteries. And finally, we go to our heavy coil. Our heavy coil, I'm not sure if that's an inductor or transformer. It requires yet another steel tube, more copper cables, 32 copper cables, and in this case, steel cables. Steel cables similar to copper cables. So instead of copper rods, you need steel rods and just turn them into cable. Now you need a heck of a lot of copper cables. This is my bottleneck right now. I am going to rework this part to get a separate copper cable source. And that will give you a heavy coil. Now with the heavy coil and all that, a total of 12 minutes will be required if you're going to handcraft all of that. And yeah, so from an explanation of 3 minutes in base vanilla Factorio, we need an extra 20 minutes to explain how to do that in a mod. This is actually not the most complicated or the most notorious mod. This is actually one of the mid-level mods, still complicated but more manageable out of the Factorio mods. So yeah, that's the video. The lesson here is mods are fun, but if you're not ready to take on the complexity involved, I would suggest you just stick with vanilla Factorio and work through the end game, build the 500 or 1k SPM mega base or that sort of thing, instead of instead of pulling your hair trying to build a decent factory in modded Factorio. And I hope you like the video. I'm not going to say subscribe or all that bullshit, but yeah, I just decided to write and do this video because I finally got around to building the whole solar thing. I am not going to even go through the whole solar array versus the solar panel thing here. Anyway, see you in the next video, I guess.